Welcome to episode 3 of Just a Game with BBZ and Brick Poker, featuring a very special guest, John Van Fleet, also known as apestyles, longtime MTT high stakes crusher, WPT global ambassador, streamer. The list goes on. This is a really fun episode. We spoke a lot about strategy, so if this is something you're interested in, this episode will be just for you. We also spoke a lot about the climate in today's poker environment, how tough it is, and how it compares to how it was back in the day, maybe 10 plus years ago. So I hope you really enjoy this episode, and let's go ahead and jump into our conversation with John Van Fleet. All right, I'd like to welcome in our guest, John Van Fleet, also known as apestyles.
Oh,
Part of the BBZ family as well, but I'm sure you know who he is. Now also for a while now actually a WPT global ambassador. How's that been, being a part of a big name like that?
oh man. Well, like my first experience with poker on TV was actually WPT.
Mm-hmm.
So that's actually what got me into poker, not moneymaker or anything like that. It was watching back then. So it's pretty crazy that I'm associated with that brand now. Um Also playing on this site has been a lot of fun too. Just like I'm getting into the cash games and um it's like a whole new thing that I'm learning, which is a lot of fun.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about that because we quickly brought it up off air, but you had the challenge that was it you gave it to yourself, or was it a bet, like a friendly wager you did with someone else?
Oh, it was just a bet that I gave myself where I said it
Yeah.
like I thought the cash games were so good that I could make like 100K in a month easy. Um, and it didn't work out that way. I had to turn 10K to 100K. I didn't use any kind of bankroll management requirements. I just played the games I was usually playing.
Right. Just a
And
race to try and get there.
yeah, exactly. And I got up to 50K and then I kind of pushed it my last couple days and ended only up 5K. But it actually at one point I was almost down to zero. And so turn the 10K to zero challenge almost did happen. So yeah.
So these are the same games that you tried to get me to get into, right?
Yeah, yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. So how big were you playing at like peak? Like what was the
The games are small blind, big blind ante with a small blind with a small blind ante, small blind, big
Mhm.
blind straddle with a small blind ante.
Okay.
And man, they kind of play like MTTs because of the ante, as far as
Yeah,
the
the range
ranges
is
go,
wide.
but they're
Sure.
super loose.
Hmm.
And I play as big as well, the biggest game I played was a Chinese yen game, which was like 200, 400, 800 with a 200 ante. So I guess that's 50
Like
at
50,
55,
100.
100. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
that's
where I
big
lost
though.
most of my money, actually.
Well, that's gonna happen. I mean, it's gonna be easier to lose a lot of money at the highest stakes that you're playing for sure, right? So
Yeah,
um,
that's actually what did happen. I kind of built a roll, and then I saw a guy that played 70% of hands playing at 400, 800, and I was like, gotta play, can't leave money on the table. And then I lost like 50. Yeah.
how long are the sessions when you're playing?
Oh, not too long. That's
No?
actually
Okay.
one of the good things about cash, I think, is that um, when I first started playing, actually, it was the opposite. I found that I couldn't get up from the table. I was almost like tunnel visioned if I was losing.
Hmm.
But after playing enough, I've learned to take regular breaks,
Sure.
analyze stuff, and it's just better. You don't want to play those like 12-hour sessions. Come on.
I feel the same way. I'm not a big enduro guy, but I know a lot of other people are like, if see a guy that's playing 70% of hands, like I'm not leaving till he leaves, man. So
I just had to tell myself the games are so good that like they're always gonna be
yeah,
like
you'll just
that
come
to
back
some
later.
degree. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, sure.
And also sometimes for me when I see someone, I don't know, like I start making my ranges wider to get that guy, and I start playing like the fish to try to get the fish, and then all my money is in the fish's hands. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not as big a fan either of the forcing it approach. I prefer the patient approach.
No shit. You're,
I'm
you're
too patient. I'm too patient.
I know you're like Mr. Sit on this money until I find the best deal, and then
And then go hard.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's your play, right?
I do
I'm
sometimes.
Yeah, I think it's super interesting when you talked about that, because I actually wanted to, because it's actually a pretty good segue. Years ago, when you were firing the 25Ks on GG, I know that you've spoken about this on other podcasts and interviews you've done, that the initial attraction was a specific person that was firing these games. So I was just curious, was it solely just that, and it was just a really good opportunity, or was part of it also you want to test yourself against other people in these games? Because I'd imagine, I mean, the fields were super small, right? It's part of that in the equation as well.
I mean, you have to have at least somebody at the table that's paying for everybody else,
Mm-hmm.
break wise. Although that's not really like, too much of an issue for me when it comes to WPT Global. I'm not going to sit down in a game where where everyone's a pro, but I do like battling a little bit.
Yeah,
It's interesting, it's also kind of part of how I cope with sometimes when I get wrecked by someone who's really good. Is I'm like, oh yeah, we're battling, like actually, um instead of getting upset by it, I'm like, cool, like what they just did there was awesome. And I like the mind games, you know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Even if I sometimes don't end up on top of it, I still like playing against thinking players. Like some of these guys I'm playing against on WPT Global, they don't know what they have, you know. So it's hard to hand read. You just kind of like you got absolute. You just kind of like
Yeah.
stick with absolute hand strength.
Yeah. Blockers
Don't
go
make
down in value.
Yeah, and don't make big folds.
Mhm.
Like you'll do things like don't do things like fold flushes to river raises, because they'll have a lower flush. You know what I'm
Yeah, yeah,
saying?
sure. Yeah.
They're they're just like I said, like you just have to not make super big folds, I think, a lot of the
Mhm.
times. And yeah.
yeah. It's
What
Yeah, I think
interesting. Yeah.
yeah, go ahead,
Go ahead.
Jake. Go ahead.
Well, I
No,
was
go
just
ahead.
gonna say I can kind of relate to that, because I'm in Ontario, Canada, and it recently closed off from the global
Mhm.
markets. So yeah, the climate is drastically different, I'll say, compared to when I was playing regularly on GG and Stars and all those other sites.
They're soft.
Yeah. I sent somebody a clip from, I don't know if you guys have ever watched The Office.
Yeah.
All day, every day. Just it's like what I watch to go to sleep and stuff.
Yeah, so do you know that clip where Kevin Malone is playing poker, and they're having some charity event, and he's
Yeah,
bragging about how good he is at poker, and then
he
one
has
of
a
the
he has a bracelet.
yeah, I that's real, I guess, right?
Yeah,
He's
he has
like,
a real
yeah,
bracelet.
he
Yeah,
goes, I'm the deuce to seven low ball champion, won a WSOP bracelet, and he's heads up with one of the coworkers, and she just
yeah.
goes, oh, I'm just gonna go all in, whatever. And he goes, yeah, I got three of a kind. And she goes, oh, I have ace high. And everyone's like, wait, you got a flush. And then he just goes, he's just like, well,
Exactly.
I guess I suck. so I sent that to somebody, like another reg in here, and we both had a laugh. It was like a good representation of how we feel when we play in these games.
Yeah, it was like when I first started playing this video game, Mortal Kombat. Like I was pretty good at it. Like I would stay there, and there'd be like a line, and people would come in, and I'd beat one dude and another dude. I'd be rocking the Mortal Kombat machine for a while, and then one time this kid came up, and I swear he was just banging buttons, and like,
Yeah.
and he beat me, and I was so pissed. I was like,
That's the best part.
yeah.
Would you say part of your competitiveness in poker stems from playing video games? Like, did you play a lot of video games as a kid
I
growing
mean,
up?
that was really the only. I mean, other than like some sports and stuff, like that was really the only thing competitive that I can trace back to because
Yeah.
but honestly, I wasn't that good. Like, I mean, I kept up with my friends at video games. I was pretty good, but I wasn't like super excellent at video games. In a way that like I believe when it comes to like poker and chess, that I'm you know pretty good at those games. Like I excel at those games. And but looking back, there's no other game where I was just like crushing it like the way.
Did you have other things that you obsessed about? Because I know that you like,
Yeah,
both of us are like pretty deep with poker, right? So did you obsess
music.
about other things?
Yeah, I guess that's the thing is that I was never that into games. Like I liked games, but I was never like until I found chess. I was never like obsessed.
Okay. Did chess or poker come
Before
first?
that,
Which one came first?
chess came before poker. Um, and they both started the same way, which started with me sucking and somebody making fun of me and me being like, "I'm gonna get you, I'm gonna, I'm gonna get you back." Uh, Chess, I lost in 4 moves, and I was like, "I'm gonna beat you in a month, man. I'll be back."
Wow, that's a big turnaround from losing in 4 moves to winning 30 days later.
Uh, it took me a little longer than 30 days to get better than them, but I did for sure.
Yeah.
And
Nice.
poker
How
was
did
the
you
same
approach
way.
getting better at chess? Did you like, was it books or
Yeah,
was it just playing?
books and this one online site at the time was Exeter Chess Club had a really nice sort of uh, database of different um, chess tactics and things like that I would go through and they had courses. So
Okay.
that was the main site I used, and then just books at that point in time.
Yeah.
Same thing
Different types of content.
Yeah, and the books did help. I mean, I got um, pretty good at chess for being self-taught and starting late. Like I think I'm around like it's tough to say, but like 1900 or so. Um, but yeah, poker was the same way. I was not skilled in the beginning. I was like missing my turn, terrible at bluffing. My friends made fun of me, and I was like, I'm gonna show y'all. And I ended up buying a bunch of books. My first book was Phil Hellmuth, Play Poker Like the Pros.
Okay.
But that was, and honestly, poker books are not very good overall.
Some
Compared
of the newer ones aren't that bad, right? What did you think of?
what's good now? I mean, I guess like
I thought that my two favorite books would be like Applications by Jonda. I thought that was actually good.
mhm.
I thought that I
Although
didn't think
there's
Michael Acevedo's book was good. I thought Applications was good.
I was gonna say, I mean,
Sorry,
that's a good reference
Modern
book.
Poker Theory.
Yeah, I think Acevedo's book's good as a reference book as well, and um, yeah, but there at that point in time there was pretty much nothing. It was
Mathematics
I
of
don't even
Poker was good, but it was like Mathemat by Bill Chen.
oh Slinsky. Yeah, Slinsky was the first book, probably one of the first books I read because I remember that was one of the ones where light bulbs really started going off and I started to understand how the game really works, the mechanics of the game. Um, Yeah, play poker like the pros actually did help me though. The main thing that it taught me was that there are different kinds of players that you profile. There was
Mhm.
like the jackal, the rock, the the elephant was the calling station, and then he created a category, the eagle, that sees all, that's like above all other players, and it's pretty much just him.
What a marketing tactic. Holy shit. That's good. I guess it's
Tipton's
tough
book was
to go ahead.
Tipton's
No,
book
go
was
ahead,
hard.
Jordan.
Yeah, I was just gonna say Tipton's book was super hard.
Oh,
Tipton's books.
you joined a study group with me. I made a study group just to read that damn book.
Yeah,
To
I think
make
I'd already read
myself
the
read
first one though before this. You started the study group.
Yeah, it was.
So that's what, yeah. But yeah, you did
I'm
start a
just
study
about to
group just to
bring
read
that up.
it.
That study group was actually like pretty legendary. There were some really good players in there, and I kind of disbanded because we weren't all doing the same amount of work. And
Okay.
That
yeah,
usually
if I could
happens
go
in
back,
study groups, I feel.
it does. It does.
Yeah.
And then whoever ends up doing the work kind of feels like, what? Like, I don't want to share all this with y'all, you bums.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I admit I was probably guilty of that as well, just because um, I've got so much paid work. I had so much paid work going on at that point in time that had to take priority to unpaid study group work.
Yeah.
But
That's how
yeah,
life goes.
yeah, for sure, for
I
sure.
just was the thing I was gonna say before. It was just I feel like with how, because we obviously drastically think about the game different today. I feel like it'd be pretty difficult to make a poker book. I don't I don't even know how it would go, to be honest. I
I
mean,
mean, I co-wrote a few, but the
right,
format of them was easy, right? The format made it so that I didn't have to do, didn't have to create sections or anything like that. It was just like, here's a hand, describe your thought process in this hand, and then you
Hmm.
did it for 50 hands or whatever. So, and while doing that, I did my best to sort of outline as many concepts as I could in each hand, but that format made it so that I didn't have to really think about the structure. That's what would be difficult is
right.
the teaching aspect, I think.
Yeah, because I mean, I know Jordan could speak for himself how much he's changed as even just a coach in the last year or 2 years. You'd say, Jordan, you've got a different approach
Yeah.
to it now.
Yeah, I mean, I would find writing a book interesting. I'm sure it'd be like really hard to do, but I would structure it the same way that I structure like my long-term CFP type of agreements, which is just me coaching the same person once a week for a year. And I would write a book in a like sort of a similar format if I had to do it,
Hmm.
where I would be like kind of focused on skill acquisition. So we would basically go from like picking one spot, like under the gun versus big blind. We would talk about c betting, and then we would go like button versus big blind and talk about c betting. We would try to like tie those two things together. So chapter 1 and 2, and then like I wouldn't try to teach poker all at once, right? I would try to like go very narrow, teach a very specific skill set, and like consistently move through it. Um, that approach seems to be very effective with students. So
Mhm.
yeah, I would write a book the same way.
I would say that the bundle, the way it was made, I was originally just tasked to make a topic or make like a classroom video about a topic, do some solves on it, and then have practical hand histories. And as I was doing it, I just realized, oh, I can just kind of naturally make a course
Hmm.
about post flop and pre flop. And so, I mean, I guess if I was to make a basic book, you could kind of just use the my Ape Styles bundle because it is essentially a course
Mm-hmm.
that
Yeah.
covers most of the basic things. Um, well, my issue is now is actually where to go next with like the advanced topics. You've been doing a lot of that, I know. You've got, I mean, you've been pumping out bundles, and like you're not even the last one I watched completely was the river simplifications. But
Okay.
what's your most recent one?
Yeah, so the most recent one is simple poker systems, where
Mhm,
I
mhm.
try to take yeah, it's the same kind of like what like spot by spot approach, where I try to take people who might not know exactly what the how the spot works, and like what heuristics sort of drive how it works, and simplify it down to like very basic like one move systems, right? So like an easy one would be under the gun versus big blind on 10 high plus boards.
Bet.
We can just range bet. Yeah, exactly. And yeah, and so right, and so understand that like once you understand that, like you'll understand that the 9 high boards and below present risks. Increasing nut ratios complicate things, right? So if straights are possible, that's a problem. If the board's paired, that can introduce problems, right? So we can start talking about some exceptions. But first, let's just 10 high plus boards, no straights possible. Let's just start by range betting, right? And then we can compare. We can take some pros actually, because I work with a lot of different professional players. We can take some pros. We can look at their database, and we can see if that basic system of just basically like c-betting range on 10 high plus boards, if that basic system can improve upon their strategy, right? And yeah, so basically I start filtering for checks in situations like that, where the check is a mistake, and inevitably they have like pocket kings on an ace high board, or they have pocket nines on a 10 high board, or they have like decent checks a lot of the time, or they have like ace king on a 10 high board or something. But they'll probably just be better off by range betting. And we can we move through like a number of different situations, like how to check raise at shorter stacks, and that's simple poker systems where I'm focusing on giving a student like a very almost like one-dimensional plan that's easy to implement, like a focus on the ease of implementation. Where when I first started coaching, it was very like broad, and that doesn't really work. So I would teach people poker pretty broadly. I would teach a lot of big ideas about how the game works. And now what I do is I go very, very, very narrow, like almost as narrow as I can. So like another example would be talking about like turn pro bets or turn pro bet opportunities, but specifically where the flop is low cards, which incentivizes the in-position player to check, and then where the turn is also a low card, which is going to give the big blind, for example, like the strongest incentive to bet. So big blind versus in position checks back on a low flop, turns a low card, and the big blind has the opportunity to pro bet. That's
one of the times that you can actually probe somewhat smaller. Usually pro bets are large, but usually in that case, isn't that generally going to be more of a
bet big?
Small... No, I mean pro bets are usually huge bets, but I think in that spot you can find some small bets too.
Yeah, so you can value bet more thinly, right? You can protection bet, right? So so if the board's like 7-5-3 and the turn's like, I don't know, like an 8 or like 8-5-3 and the turn's a deuce or something like that, you can end up pro betting with like a pair of threes or a pair of deuces, a good block, right? So you have the opportunity sometimes to go more thinly, which can open up smaller bets, but you'll still see large bets there. You will frequently still see.
You always do. I mean, that's just sort of the way it works. I relate to that idea of the simple systems. I use it a lot with my database reviews. I've got a few different apestyles challenges that are like overly simplified, but I think kind of fun. Like, so for instance, one of them is if someone's not raising enough in the big blind versus the small blind limp, like sometimes you'll see people that have like 30% in GTOs around 43, 44.
Yep.
I show them the section you're supposed to bluff from, the triangle of trash, the king deuce to I think it's like, the king deuce up to the whole and all the offsuit deuces and 10-6
like
offsuit,
7 deuce, 8 deuce, yeah, sure.
Exactly. And I'm like, okay, for one day you're gonna raise 100% of these because you've been missing it. You've been missing it.
Sure. You gotta hit it hard.
Yeah. And it doesn't actually. The fact is that I believe in most cases that your trash is just going to benefit from a raise unless it's a good player who can defend well. So for the most part, I think that you can print in that spot. Another one would be bets versus checks in positions or float bets. I don't really recommend just like automatically like blasting that spot, but actually your air is fine to bet there, and a lot of people don't do it. And then I have another Ape Styles challenge, which is kind of like just a recommendation if someone's like too stationy on the river. I'm like, listen, the nature of calling on the river is should be 0 EV. So for one day, really just try to fold all your bluff catchers for one day. Unless it's a really good spot. But because like I've told myself, okay, today you're gonna fold all your bluff catchers, and then I'm like, I'll make it calm down. But I actually think it's a decent mentality to be in, where you're not looking to call off in big spots. Because for the most part, I think that the population is under bluffing in a lot of situations. So um, I think it's
Yeah,
probably
that's been true since we started, right? We've
yeah,
had the same read since we started playing poker. Right? These guys don't bluff enough.
yeah. Although I think it is changing a little bit, and I also think that it depends. It now depends more.
For
Like
sure.
if it's if you give like if there are checks, if the aggression is not consistent, they can be bluffing like more often, like
Sure.
in the bet check bets line, in the bet check bet lines, things like that. They're generally, the population is generally not bluffing that much when it comes to like big three barrels and things like that. So.
Sure. Well, they also like it's like humans aren't solvers, right? Which is not rocket science. So
Mhm.
like they get driven by emotions like fear and greed, right? So when they have a really strong hand, there's a strong temptation to be greedy, right? And try to get paid and try to win a big pot and not take the risk of like checking, which might be required, to play the hand optimally. But obviously runs risks of like, the other player doesn't bet enough in position, he checks it back, and now I don't win a big pot. So the one way to make sure the pot gets bigger is just bet yourself, right? And so that sort of like
Mhm.
greedy control component to being a human like tends to drive, triple barrels with really strong hands like a lot, right? Or the most aggressive line with the strongest hands, the check raise flop with the set plus the turn C bet plus the river jam, right? Like it's
Mhm.
very tempting for like any human to just from a greed perspective, like to play and behave in that way. And then on the fear side, it's easy to like check raise bluff the flop and then get called really quickly or something. And then subsequently like chicken out on the turn because you're like, well, that timing was like really intimidating. And maybe they're not thinking about that when they have a set, but they're thinking about like all these variables that could cause them to like basically back off when they're bluffing. And so if you like, factor in like, a couple of variables that they're evaluating that might cause them to wuss out on the turn with their bluffs, and then you pair that with a couple of variables that would cause them to wuss out on the river, and those variables really aren't present with their value bets, all of a sudden the range is just too strong, right? And like that might be like someone who's really observant, like they're actually paying attention, they're like making good adjustments to like timing and different things like that. But all of a sudden, at the end of the day, like their ranges for triple barreling, like across large samples, are just too strong.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think it's super interesting when you bring up stuff like greed and fear, kind of getting more
Mhm.
into the human aspect of it, because this is something I've actually thought more about because I've just been coaching more recently, and I see like a lot of repetitive mistakes that from players that they wouldn't typically make. And I try to dig a little bit deeper and figure out what the issue is. It could be autopiloting too many tables or just distraction. And it just made me think more about how important it is, especially in today's climate with how tough the game is. Because the game's only, we talk about all the time, the game's always getting harder. And the tools that you actually have access to, even recreationals in general, it's a lot easier for them to improve. I mean, you got stuff like the content we provide at a very affordable rate and whatnot. So the actual performance part, when, because you do all the studying you want, and then actually Mike Tyson's favorite line, you can't even say it
Everybody's got
properly,
a
but
plan until they get punched in
yeah,
the face.
until you get
Yeah.
punched in the face. So it's like when you're playing and you're actually performing similar to an athlete, right? They do all the practice and they actually step on the court. I feel that's part, aside from, I'll bring in LeBron James here as an example, aside from just raw athletic ability, part of why he's so good and probably what's underrated is his actual basketball IQ and being conscious of that when he's actually in game. I think that's like a super underrated thing, and I feel like you do, Ape Styles, a pretty good job about this, because I know in a podcast you spoke about Buddhism and how you a lot of those techniques help you stay calm, and I feel part of that is what makes most poker players, successful ones at least, really good, is just staying in the zone per se. I feel like it's super underrated, that topic.
I remember Phil Galfond in a 2+2 post like 15 years ago said that ideally he wants to be a Zen EV bot with emotions don't come into play when you're playing. And the truth is, apart from maybe some unconscious intuition stuff, there really isn't much use for emotion within the game because um, you know logic prevails, and I think that for the most part, yeah, our emotional system isn't tuned well to play good poker. We're constantly kind of overriding it. Um, for me, I've actually found, for instance, with cash games, I have to relearn how to how to not be playing emotionally, how to not be thinking about being stuck, how to not move on to each hand, each. Just like I've actually heard about LeBron James speaking about basketball like this, where it just doesn't matter what you just did. Each play, you have to just focus on that. And anytime I get removed from just being present, focusing on the table, and trying to analyze the facts that I'm presented with, I should probably stop playing. You know, um, or at least look at it. For me, I found it's funny. I don't know. People have watched me play, and they're like, "Oh, you don't tilt," and it's like, yes, I do. I absolutely tilt, but it's like subtle tilt, um, where maybe I'll make a call off that I wouldn't make that's like kind of close or something. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
or I'll start acting too fast, or I'll. There's all kinds of subtle tilts that you have to readjust from too while you're playing, and I think being present, like, which, yeah, meditation and Buddhism did help me with that. Uh, help me see when I'm like see when I'm being emotional or not playing well, and kind of get back to equilibrium.
Yeah, I think it's other stuff too. Just even because at the end of the day, I don't want to call us like poker players aren't athletes by any means, but we sit in a chair all day. But I feel like part of it is also just lifestyle with some guys. Exercise, like having a good diet and exercising, just so you're sharper. Because I feel like that's part of it as well. Just when you're doing everything outside of the tables, that's good. So when you come in, you have more energy. Because I mean, these sessions, those long sessions, they're grueling and they are exhausting.
Yeah, I mean, I think if I was going to predict, I mean, let's say you just have, all right, you got two different people who are going to try to succeed at poker. One guy is or one person is of average intelligence, but they work out, eat healthy, meditate before they play, make sure that they're always playing in the right games. And the other guy is super smart, um, whatever, but just doesn't, gets right out of bed, plays, doesn't take care of themselves, tilts. I'm gonna bet on the average intelligence person that has good life habits and good game selection in poker all day, right?
Yeah, same.
Yeah,
Yeah,
me as
It's not
well.
even close either. It's not even close.
yeah.
I've seen it so many times with different players, right?
Yeah, I've worked with a lot of people,
Yeah,
and
yeah. You can echo that.
yeah, the people who are like really, really, really smart, but I mean, it's really to get really good at poker. It's like getting good at anything. You have to stick with it for a really long time, right?
Mm.
And the person who's like kind of more well rounded, that person's like going to find it easier to stick with it for a really long time. And the other part about poker is that like money to a poker player is like wood to a carpenter, right? So like you need to have money to make money. And if you have a lot of like life leaks, however you want to describe it, then you're less likely to have money when you need to have money, which is basically every single day, right? So otherwise you can't play. So if your money's gone, and money can be expensive, especially for poker players, right? Like borrowing it from poker players, getting staked, right? It means giving up half of your income in a lot of cases for a lot of players. Getting staked, not having money as a poker player is really expensive. Like the bank's not going to give you, a loan at 6.5% against your income or something like that, right? Like as a poker player, it's just never going to happen. So
yeah, when you're bust though, you're in trouble.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's hard to come back. So, I would say that, especially if you're looking at like overall like long term success as a poker player, because if you're really smart, you go broke, you get staked, and you give up half your income. And I stake people, and like we help them, and we do everything we can to help them get back to where like they're on their feet and everything's good. But if that happens, then if it goes bad for a while, like it doesn't feel like the opportunity is even there for you, right? And so like you just quit, and they're more likely to move on. Whereas the person that's like really dialed in and really on top of it, they're gonna find it way easier to stick with it when it gets hard. I think. So yeah.
Yeah, they have other things that are their routine and consistency there. I think actually does help. Like, I lost a bunch of weight one time when I was on a poker downswing because I was like, I felt like I couldn't control anything. I was just losing, and I was like, well, I need to start like winning at something, like
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I need to get something I can control and some W's in my life, and actually, like in that case, it was losing weight. Uh, actually, I just recently started up. I got like a little personal, like a gym at my house, and I got a trainer.
Okay.
Yeah. But for a while, I wasn't actually like doing too much working out at all. But yeah, my
You used to do a lot of heavy lifting, right? Have you stopped?
yeah. That's the thing is like I don't do that anymore. I used to
Okay.
just like do a lot of 1 rep maxes. Basically just squat, bench, and deadlift, and try to go heavy there.
Yeah.
You just don't have to. It's not good for you.
Yeah, no, it's not super great for you. Like longevity wise, deadlifting like as much weight as you can possibly deadlift one time off the floor is probably not great for your back.
No.
Yeah.
So,
but I don't know. I just like, but like I definitely had kind of like a dumb like I like to lift heavy things mentality, and my new trainer is like he's really good, and it's way boring though. It's like it's all about form and like we don't lift heavy. It's just all about doing it really slowly and perfectly. Actually, to be honest, I mean that shit hurts. I just want to put it up, I just want to throw
yeah,
things up. I'm not
chest,
sure.
man.
Yeah, but no, but I actually really I respect what he's going for now, and um the reason that I'm in the gym is different than it used to be. I used to just like want to be sexy or something, but now it's more about longevity, and movement and mind body stuff.
It's funny how that changes as we get older.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I just don't want to hurt as much. I'm just going to go to the gym. I don't want to be in as much pain. Things are going to slip. Like we're just going to keep going. It's cool. Don't need to push it.
There's no reason to just be like, oh, I'm so strong. It doesn't matter. And do as much for you as just really focusing on the muscle anyway, and making sure that you're isolating it and moving it in the correct way. In the past I was definitely like kind of one of those tool bags at the gym, like you know doing bicep curls with their whole body.
Yeah, so he's got you stressing your body in the proper form, basically.
Yeah, and you can tell that he has a pretty good knowledge of the anatomy. So it's just like he's like getting every single muscle, it seems like, and every part of each muscle, and doing a bunch of different exercises. And um, yeah. Also, he's not like usually when I have a trainer, I can like distract them into not having to work as hard. He's I can just like tell a story and they laugh, and then I don't have to work. But this guy doesn't have much of a sense of humor. Doesn't think I'm funny. So he's like, yeah, okay, get to work. And I actually like it though. I like it. It's that's what he's there for.
Yeah, nice, man. Good for you.
Cool, man.
How many times a week are you in the gym right now?
4. All right,
Okay, so it's a
I'm
lot.
starting up at 4 again. I actually got out of the hospital recently, so
I know. Yeah,
I've
I
been
didn't
getting
know
the
if you wanted.
gym.
I didn't know what it was, so I didn't want to ask you about it. But
Leg
Oh,
infection?
it's nothing.
Yeah, it's like a
Yeah,
leg
yeah, nothing too
infection.
crazy.
Yeah.
It was just, yeah, man. Like I had a scraped knee, and I woke up, and my freaking leg was all swollen and hurt so bad. And I was like, "Did I fall over? I don't remember falling over."
jeez, that's
Um,
terrible.
yeah, and it, so I looked it up, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I've got blood clots. I'm gonna die."
The worst thing
Um,
you could do, literally the worst thing you could
Google it.
do, is
Google
googling
it.
your symptoms. I've made that mistake before. It's terrifying.
Yes.
Yeah.
What was it? Was it staph or what was it?
It was just an infection. Like I went to the hospital, and they
Mhm.
took me a couple days, but
Antibiotics.
yeah, just antibiotics. And then, I was in the hallway in a Montreal hospital. It was brutal. I was like, please just give me some regular antibiotics. Let me go.
Yeah,
Um,
sure.
but yeah, you know, they took care of me, and
Sure.
I got better. So I'm not going to talk too much bad about the Canadian healthcare system. But wow, um,
Slow. It's
yeah,
slow.
yeah,
When
and
everybody can get
everyone,
it and it's free, man, it's slow. It's the way. I mean, that's the trade off, right? Like everybody can get it. It's free. So the demands on the system are significant, right? I've
there's
talked about
just
this
people in
before.
there that don't even need to be there,
Yeah, of
really,
course not,
who
because
are
it's
like
free, bro.
drug
Because it's
seeking, and
free.
yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
like everything else. If it's free, then like the demand goes up, right? If you put a price on it, then the demand will go down, right? Now it's a contentious
yeah.
point, but like you don't have to put a big price on it. You could put a pretty small price on it. It would just encourage people to be more reasonable about like whether or not they need to be seen.
That's a good idea. Putting a very small price on it
Yeah.
is
Yeah, just like if it was 20, if it was like $10 to go see the doctor, even if you were homeless, right? If your leg was going to fall off, if it was important to you, you could still come up with $10.
yeah.
Um, and so then you can go to the doctor. Like everybody could go to the doctor if it was $10. But if it was $10 and you want to go to the doctor every 3 days, like it's going to be a significant expense for you, right? So
hmm
yeah,
I think that's smart, because I do think, mm, that it's a great idea. The idea of universal healthcare, I love it. That people can have equal access.
hmm
When you're really in pain, or when you're really going through something, you should be able to have that access. Uh, but yeah, people abuse it.
yeah,
And I actually definitely saw that while I was there. But overall, you know what? I got treated, and I actually thought that the nurses and doctors, they were quite competent and nice. They had to deal with a lot.
yeah. They were pretty
um,
overwhelmed, I think, was my understanding.
yeah,
And
that's the main thing. Is just there's so many people there.
yeah, there's just the demand is just enormous, right?
Yeah,
And
I know a few people that worked in the healthcare system here in Toronto, and it's crazy. And
yeah,
they
just
don't
the
make it
burden.
very attractive for you to work there either.
I
So
No, the
wouldn't do
burnout
it.
is super high. Yeah, the
yeah.
burnout is just super high. You know,
Yeah,
the
you know
attrition.
Jordan, right? Obviously your wife is a nurse, right? So
Yeah, yeah, she was. She's retired, but yeah,
oh, okay.
yeah, the burnout and the attrition is really really steep, right?
Hmm.
So
And the thing is, I was just noticing too, and people in pain, they're not generally very friendly either. So you're
no,
serving people and helping them, and they're freaking they are rude.
yeah, a lot of
They're
people won't be nice.
yelling at you.
Yeah,
So it can also be sort of a thankless profession, man. You know, when I went to rehab like 10 years ago, and I did a lot of like, while I was there, I was thinking about whether or not my job helps people, and whether or not like it's fulfilling. And I
hmm
even considered like going back to school, and I was volunteering at this treatment center, and doing some therapy, like working at being a counselor, and gave me like 3 months of that. I was like, fuck that. I like poker.
yeah, it doesn't take long with a real job to be like, I'm going back to
Uh,
the going back to
oh
what
my,
I'm doing.
yeah, that's
Oh
crazy.
man, it was like, just I just noticed that in that there's a lot of turnover, a lot of burnout. There's like um
Yeah, it's hard, man.
when you're trying to help people, and it just, you're not always successful,
hmm
and it's not it's hard to not take that kind of work home with you. I mean, just respect the people that do that kind of stuff. But I realized I like poker. Like I like I like being good at what I do and studying it, and even playing. I feel like when life gets complicated, poker doesn't feel so complicated to me. I almost feel like it's an escape
Sure.
for me.
I actually
Yeah, I
want
feel
to.
like.
Oh,
Go ahead, Jake. Go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah. Okay. I just wanted to talk about because you mentioned fulfillment, right? Is there any new sense of fulfillment that you get from? I mean, obviously, coaching. I feel like coaching is kind of fulfilling when you're actually working with somebody and they have certain goals and you actually help them get there. And then, is there anything aside from that? Obviously, you've transitioned into this role of being a streamer. Like most of your life, you've mainly just played poker, right? So now you,
That's actually what did it. I'm
yeah.
sorry I cut you off.
No, you're good.
But that actually kind of put the last piece to the puzzle in a way, because I don't know, I wasn't super comfortable with just being like only a degenerate gambler.
Right.
I want to teach other people to be degenerate gamblers. Um, but no, like I wasn't super comfortable with just being a poker player, and after streaming, I don't know, I try to put out as much good energy as I can, and um a lot of what I learned actually in treatment, just about like um trying to respond to everything with love and kindness, and uh I've gotten a lot of responses from people saying that either the courses I've done, the bundle, or something in my stream really helped them. In fact, like, man, one time, I don't even know how this is possible, it blew me away, but somebody said that they that somehow something I said talked them off of a cliff, and that they were going to kill themselves, and that
Wow.
um, so like that blew my mind. But like,
Mhm.
I guess what I'm trying to say is that I do feel now that I'm connected to people, and that I have more purpose than um when I was just like, when you just play, you're kind of just taking, but when you're coaching, you're helping somebody else put food on you're helping
Mhm.
somebody else win money for themselves, and um same kind of thing with streaming. And there's just been like a lot of side benefits. Like, for instance, my mom and I haven't always been close, but since streaming, she's like in all of my streams, right? and
Nice.
and and like listens to me a lot. And we've like, she gets me a lot more than she used to, and so there's just like all these side benefits of streaming that I never expected. And thanks, Jordan, because I wouldn't have streamed without you. You were the guy that
I
got
mean,
me to stream.
you might have figured it out. You might have figured it out.
Uh-uh. I was I was like, nah, I don't. That looks terrible. I don't want to do that. No thanks.
Yeah, I mean, I
Um,
never really even thought about doing it like when I was just playing. Like when I was just playing before I thought about it on the business side. I don't think I would have started streaming for fun, for example. Right? Like if I didn't have any kind of business thing, I don't know that I would have just been like woken up one, Wednesday morning and been like, you know what? I'm gonna go on Twitch. Like I didn't even know really what Twitch was, to be honest with you. Like I don't know if that makes me old or something, but I didn't even know what Twitch really was
no.
when I was playing. Like I would play, I would study, teach my guys, like that's it. And then
Mhm.
I would check out a poker and I would go do go to the gym, go be a husband, like whatever, go do my life stuff, right? I wasn't really
Here,
tuned into
read.
like, yeah, read books. Exactly. Yeah, there's some
Yeah.
books behind me. So read a little bit, right? I wouldn't really be like on the Twitch streets, like, at all. So
Mm.
I don't even know if I knew that Twitch existed prior to like thinking about, um, yeah, from like a business perspective, like how things might work. So
I did, because every once in a while someone will be like, "Oh, this streamer's at your table."
yeah, okay.
So I'd be like, "Oh, I'm gonna watch what they've got."
Okay, sure. Yeah.
Although I find that pretty hard to do, to be honest. If I'm like playing 8 tables, like, it's hard to watch a streamer for me too at the same time.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's how I knew about it before. Um, I was stupid though, like, because I would basically stream with no delay all the time for coaching. I would
Sure.
charge people for the most part, but
Hmm.
I did it for my group at max value. I played 25Ks with no delay with like 7 people watching me.
Yeah, I remember you told me that. I told you that was like maybe a little bit nuts. But I did the
No,
same thing a little bit though. I did the same thing a little bit with hypers.
these people in my course weren't talking to 25K players.
Yeah, sure.
I didn't think so, but still,
Yeah, it's a
any
lot of money.
chance is too much chance. I don't know really what I was thinking.
Yeah, when I played sit and goes, I would do the same thing. Like I would be playing like 6 max hypers, be playing 1K sessions, and like my horses would be allowed to watch. Right.
Yeah,
And so like if someone was like feeding information back to anybody, they would just crush me. Like this is, but I don't, like it's just like I don't know. We take risks, like they're part of gambling. So like
yeah, but maybe not 25. Maybe I shouldn't
yeah,
have
maybe
taken
not 25Ks. Yeah, you were taking I was playing 1K hypers. You were playing 25K. So
Yeah. Um, but yeah, like people were like, "Oh, he's a like natural." Like when I first started, and it's like, dude, no, I've been doing this. Like
yeah, sure.
I've been playing online poker and talking about what I'm doing while I do it for a very long time. That's
Yeah.
it's it just I'd never really done it like open like that, like a stream.
Yeah, to anybody. Same. Yeah.
Yeah,
What was it like when you went the first time you had like more than 500 people on the stream?
that was the first time I ever streamed.
Oh, was that the
Um,
very first one? You had more than 500 people watching?
yeah.
Yeah, sick.
Well, it was sick. The first time I ever streamed, I won 55 like PKO for like 33,000. And
Mhm.
I think I peaked at 600 at that point the
Okay.
first time. Um and that was literally the first time. I have no idea how I got that many viewers the first time. It just did.
Yeah. Okay.
Um plus just, I think playing for high stakes, but it was started off at like 200.
Yeah.
Um
Nice.
and then within 2 weeks I was two tabling deep in a 5K on Poker Stars that was 1 million for first, and a 5K on Party Poker that was 800K for first. And I had 5,000 people watching. And that was
Yeah,
two
that's
weeks after I
crazy.
started.
Yeah,
You
that's
called
crazy.
me up and you were like, "All right, man, this is the moment. This is when you got to do like push your stuff, dude."
Yeah, sure. Of course I did.
Yeah. And it was crazy to come out the gates like that. And honestly, I've never had those numbers again. I've had up to like 4,500, but I never had 5,000 plus since
Mhm.
the very beginning. Which is kind of a bummer. Like like it's kind of like child
Peak
star
early.
syndrome. Yep, yeah. Peaked in high school.
Yeah.
Um, like, uh, but you like. It is true though. I mean, especially with like Twitch numbers going down, almost all streamers' numbers are way down from COVID, at
Yeah,
least.
you got a
Um,
lot of competitors now with YouTube. Kick is a new one.
mhm.
They're making splashes where they just sign a bunch of big streamers for huge amounts of money to just get them off the platform to come over to theirs. And I don't know if,
Mhm.
like specifically with poker if that's the thing, because I don't think it's that comparable. Maybe it is because you're getting viewers off the site. Um,
Mhm.
but you'll get back to big viewership. I mean, you just gotta usually
Well,
how Twitch poker works. You gotta just make a big FT, right, and a coup or something like that.
yeah. I mean, I would say like I still have big viewership like in comparison. It's just like my numbers went from averaging like, man, when I first started, I was averaging over 1,000.
Mhm.
Right.
And now I'm averaging, I think, like 500 or 600, which is
Sure.
um
That's still really good for what it's worth.
it's, it's not bad. But like
I think it's pretty good.
yeah, and honestly, like I try not to think too much about. I don't keep my eye on the numbers too much, just because what's the point? Just
Yeah.
do your
Yeah.
best to make your product good and enjoy what you're doing, and
100%.
hopefully
Yeah.
numbers will come.
Yeah. Yeah, you're sitting there stressing about the numbers or whatever. It's just gonna make everything worse.
Yeah, it's gonna make like you're not gonna enjoy yourself, so that's gonna come across, and then people aren't gonna have fun, right? And I think a big part of like I would like to think my appeal is that I like to play poker and I have fun playing poker, and I
Mhm.
think that comes across when I'm playing and if I'm not having fun, for the most part, it's not fun to watch me.
Yeah, sure.
It just works out that way.
Yeah.
What did you want to say before, Jordan, when I cut you off?
No, you're good, dude. I don't even remember. I don't even remember what it was. You're good.
Okay.
No, of course not. You're good.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm just curious. What would you say? Because obviously you've accomplished a lot in poker. Is there one thing in particular that you're still kind of seeking in a way?
Always, man.
Yeah.
Like I want, like,
Never
but
stops.
yeah, for me, I want the live trophies, but that's actually not entirely true because, like, yeah, what I want the bracelets and the live trophies for sure. But that's not actually what motivates me. I still just want to be like, I want to win everything online. You know,
Yeah.
like um, I have like, yeah, I'm just more motivated by the idea of being the best player that I can be or being the best, right? Like, and having a complete understanding of poker in the game. And that's kind of what keeps me going. Um, but yeah.
Is it like just trying new formats too, though? Because I know you're obviously playing a lot of cash, and you mentioned you playing more cash. Is it that type of stuff that gets you kind of the fire again? To because you've
A
studied the
little
game
bit.
so much, right? Like MTTs. So
Mhm.
I see the appeal to take on a new challenge, whether it's no limit hold'em cash games or even PLO cash games, or mixed games even.
Well, I also think that you can learn about like no limit from deeper from playing other formats like PLO. Like I started learning a little bit about PLO and I start kind of almost understanding connectivity more in no limit hold'em because that idea is more prevalent in PLO with when it comes to 4 card hands. Um, and so I do like taking on new challenges. I'm not quite like Stevie back in the day loved to learn new games because he likes the learning curve
Mhm.
where you go from like stupid to smart, to competent pretty fast.
Yeah.
I don't like the stupid phase though. So I don't like I don't like I don't adapt to new games quite as quickly as some people. I'm more like this is what I do. I dig in and um,
Yeah. I
but
stick with the
like
same
even
thing for like a long period of time. Like this
yeah.
is my thing, yeah. And then I can relate to your desire to like get like I want to have like a complete understanding of how the game works. Like I started this thing, I've come pretty far with this thing, and like I don't want to leave this thing until I know everything about how it works. And like it's just like I want to know everything about how it works. And that's like there's no for me it's not like money or trophies or tournaments or like I don't even know if it's being like the best version of myself that I can be is in poker or whatever. I think it's like I want to know how the damn thing works. Like if I don't understand how stuff works, it bothers me. So like I just want to know what the drivers are, like how to if I change something, like if I think something works a certain way, the first thing I do is I go think about what would make that statement untrue. Right? Like if
Mhm.
I go test it against like all of the assumptions that might make it untrue. And I want to know like where it's not true and why it's not true and how it works. And yeah, that's to me like what the allure is to the game. Because I've been doing this for a while. I don't think of myself as like a really stupid guy, but I still don't know how it all works at all. Not even close. So there's just a
That's what's
lot.
annoying about learning about something. Just like it's the more you unlock, the more you realize, oh shit, like I didn't know as much as I thought.
Yeah, sure.
Like the more
Yeah,
that you learn, the more you realize there is to learn.
yeah,
Um, I think it's kind of like a Dunning Kruger kind of thing too, where yeah, the more competent you are at something, the more you see how far like away you the best or perfect.
sure.
Um, but I mean, I remember saying in like 2007, like I got this pre-flop game down, three X queens under the gun, 20 big blinds.
Yeah,
I
sure.
got this pre-flop game so down, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
Um, but like and what was the truth of the matter was that like I was actually incompetent. I won a few tournaments and was over evaluating or overrating my skill set. And like I feel like the more I learned in poker, the more I realized like how much there is to learn and how deep the game is.
Yeah, and there's always going to be something new, right? Like you have PKO formats, and now you have mystery bounties. I'm sure there's going to be
Yeah.
maybe something new in a couple of years, right? So it never ends, especially if that's where the attraction is, right? Like we were talking earlier about, you know, a little bit about game selection and whatnot. So, you know, if everybody's playing PKOs and mystery bounties, that's where attention needs to go, especially pre-flop, because that's like the biggest thing.
That's actually what Stevie told me when he was winning all those games. He was like, well, whatever game where the biggest fish is sitting, I want to play that game.
Yeah.
So now, I mean, he doesn't game select. He plays 300Ks. I mean,
Yeah, sure.
but like that idea that I want to be, you know, skilled, that I can play whatever game that the biggest whale is playing makes sense, I think. But yeah, for me, I'm like you, Jordan. I really look to understand everything about poker on from a macro to a micro level. I want to be able to answer every question, and if I can't, luckily now we have the tools to sort of
go get the answer.
To get the answer. And I like that process, and I've been doing that for a long time. So I actually sometimes like roll my eyes at new formats and stuff. I'm like, come on, man! Like I've been studying No Limit so hard. I don't want to. But actually, PKOs are sweet. Like I now that I've done like a lot of research on them, I like PKOs because like you don't have to be all ICM knit a lot. You can just be a you know flashy maniac with a big stack. So you know, perfect for me.
Gamble and it's profitable.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a fun format. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I definitely like them, and you have to pay attention to a lot of factors. I mean, like the stack size dynamics are even more important than ICM stack size dynamics and stuff. So, I think that they're fun. Like when I didn't know what I was doing, I didn't like playing them, but now I feel like I kind of know what I'm doing. At least I have a model for it. At least, you know.
Yeah. The beginning's always rough, but then it gets more. I find when I feel like I'm gambling, I don't like the game much. Like if I feel like I'm just like lost, I don't like the game much. But once I get less lost, then I enjoy it more. So I'm not a big fan of the sucking part either. I like the not sucking much more.
Yeah. It's funny. Like, I remember, like I was playing this game, Guitar Hero, back in the day with this girl I dated, Marie, at the time, and we were playing songs together, going on real slow. The first time we got the game, it was just, and she was having a lot of fun singing along. But then she went to sleep, and I'm just practicing all night, and I'm like, all of a sudden, like, much better and like advanced at it. And she's like, it's not fun anymore. And I'm like, what do you mean? It just got fun. But yeah, I kind of feel the same way. Like it's like my dad too. He taught me poker and chess, but won't play me in either.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
What kind of? Oh, go no. Go ahead, Jordan. Go ahead.
No, yeah, I said I had similar experiences. Like when I was a kid growing up, like whenever I would play a game, like when I would first start playing it, I would always be like, I would almost never be the best. Like I'd have like a couple of friends, my brother, that I'd play games with, and it doesn't matter what game we played. I've always felt like I was like the worst one when we would pick the game up. But I would go home and like we would wake up and I'd be like, "Yo, let's play," and then I'd smash them, and they'd be like, "Let's play a different game," and I'd be like, "What are you guys talking about? I had to play all day yesterday. You guys were having fun. Now you guys want to move on? Like we can't move on. We're gonna stay here for like a month." So
I relate to that, and now that I think about it, I've actually always kind of had that, and what I had to do too a lot of the times was practice on my own. That's actually what I realized about like my peak performance for me generally is gonna be solo. Like working without oversight from somebody else or anything like that is like it's hard for me to learn while I'm being observed for whatever reason. So
Sure.
I like to I always go home and like go to the
Yeah.
lab myself and then come
Exactly.
back, you know.
Close
Yeah.
the door, slam it shut, lock myself in, and then come out and be like, all right, let's go, baby. Let's see what you got. And smash.
But I am not actually, like you said, I'm not the person who's gonna be right away pick up on everything and be just understand the game. Like there are some super smart poker players who like with literally like Genius 28 and Doubt and stuff. These guys are way smarter than me. They would literally make up new poker games and play them versus each other. Like
Yeah, that's
and
crazy.
and I'm like, no, I'm not gonna do. Yeah, I'm not playing this game with you sharks, man.
Yeah.
And that kind of person, I actually think, succeeded 20 years ago in poker when nobody knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
The smartest people, or the
One.
ones that yeah, won. But now it's more of a those who have put the work in, put the reps in, understand all the ranges and such. Those are the like a lot of those super smart people. They found something else they can make money at,
Yeah,
or
sure.
but they didn't. They a lot of them didn't stick around in poker.
Yeah, you just have to
Um,
keep the guys that are at the top. I think a lot of them, like they just there's a tenure to it to some degree now. Like you've got these guys that have been around for a while, who have put in reps, who have like hammered away at it and like figured it out. I think Pone Diddy. I feel like he's relatively new though, and he's done extraordinarily well.
I
I
mean,
don't want
he
to
ain't
like
that
I don't
new
want to
though,
like
is he?
shortchange his career, but like I don't know if he's like longer than a decade though, or like that type of a career, right? I'm not sure. I'd have to ask him. We'll have him on and I'll ask him.
But if you, I mean, at the same time, if you listen to that guy talk about poker, he's studied up.
No, yeah,
Like,
he's definitely knows his shit, dude.
Savage,
For
yeah.
sure.
yeah. So I mean, like it's the same kind of thing. It is kind of crazy though. You don't, man. When I first started playing, and right after the boom, there were all these kids coming up. Like there were all these young people. I think I see it a little bit more now, but it's like live. Um,
Mhm.
but like yeah, there were all these young guys, and they were the best. Like it was like the ones who were like cutting edge, and I
Mhm.
don't really see that as much anymore. It's like all those young guys, a lot of them are still in the game, or
Mhm.
but you don't. It doesn't seem like.
They're there.
I mean, do you think
I've
so?
yeah, I've worked with a few guys, and I feel pretty good about them. You know, we've had some guys come through academy that have left, worked out well,
Mhm,
and
mhm,
they'll be killers later on. They're there. It's just you're probably right that there's just not that many of them. But this is kind of what I was saying before about how easier it is to get better at the game, right? And it's not as affordable. Like at least for me, so I started playing more seriously 7, 8 years ago. Didn't have GTO Wizard, barely didn't even know what Pile was. It was just Google, look up forums and uh and then a couple years after I started playing, this is when Raise Your Edge came out. And that was pretty much the only piece of content aside from one that I bought was Tournament Poker Edge back in the day that I looked
mhm.
at a bit. So now you got kids coming up that are 20 years old, and it's like I can subscribe to BBZ, I can subscribe to GTO Wizard. Even the free
Mhm.
content that's available is way better than what was back then because it's all kind of shifted, I guess. But yeah, there's some killers up and coming for sure. Some bright guys. I mean, we're working with you know some guy in Sweden who's studying some crazy thing in university, and he's just like, I want to play poker. So like, there's some real intelligent dudes that are coming up that will succeed, I believe.
Oh, without a doubt, and with that being said, if somebody's like, you have it happen all the time, I'm sure. Where like some people who don't get it are like, so if I gave you 1,000 play poker, that or like people are or like, um, how do I get into poker? Like, I hate my job. I want to start playing poker for a living. I'm like, no,
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
keep
I
your
say that
job,
all the
say
man.
time.
the same
Yeah,
thing.
keep your
Yeah.
job,
I'm
dude.
just
Yeah.
I'm
Play
like,
for
nah,
fun.
man. Yeah. Now I knew I was gonna succeed at poker though. Like that's the thing is um I knew that I didn't want a 9 to 5 job,
Mhm.
and uh I just like I even the guy who taught me, Chase, who's a very smart dude who was he taught me ICM in 2006, and he was like played sit and goes for a living. But
Mhm.
I wanted to be a tournament poker player, and he was like, bad idea, man.
Yeah.
And uh, like but I just knew that I was gonna make that work, and somehow I did. I think, but that's what you kind of need. I think like you need some stubbornness, and you need because you're gonna go through a downswing that at some point that that's gonna be close to breaking you, or um
Yeah.
like there's just a lot of downside to the game. You have to love what you're doing, and you have to be really like committed to it if you want to make a living out of it.
Yeah, being like almost delusional, I think helps, right? Where you're just like, I can do it. Like there's just like I can do it for sure. Like for sure I can do it. Like maybe these other dudes can't do it, but me, I can definitely do it. Like you have to have a piece of that to like kind of start almost, right? Because like you're trying to beat people at a game where they take rake. Like you're not trying to beat people at chess where it's like there's just two people over the board and there's no fee. Like you, in order to win money at poker, you have to be better than the field above the rake. So it's like, hell yeah, like I have a 10% edge on the field. It's like, well, if the rake's 11%, you're a losing player. So like, you have to be significantly better than everybody
Yeah.
else, not a little bit better.
Zero
And
sum
that's just,
game plus rake.
yeah, right. Yeah. So like, it's, like it's a pretty arrogant thing when we're like, yeah, I can do this for sure and make money. So I think you definitely need like the self-confidence, like borderline delusional self-confidence. But, uh, yeah, I mean, like for me, when I started, I was playing games that had smaller fields. I think if you're playing games that have smaller fields, you can build that confidence for sure. I think it's hard with tournaments. That's probably maybe why you were counseled not to. Like when you just start in the tournament mix, it can be a little bit. That's more daunting than like I was playing games that had like 45 people, right? And so
Yeah.
if you win consistently on like a weekly basis, monthly basis, you don't like if the games are soft enough. I didn't lose on like from 1 month to the next when I was first starting because when I was first starting, I was playing like 3 cent games and like 10 cent games. So those guys weren't even
Little,
trying to win.
little known fact too. I met Jordan because I enlisted his help. I actually tried to get him as a coach because he was crushing the 18-man games, and
Mhm.
I couldn't beat them. And honestly, he was playing goofy. I thought he sucked, but then I looked at his shark scope, and it was like straight up, and I was like,
Uh,
okay, he's doing something that I'm not doing. I got to figure out what he's doing. And you charged me $300 back then, even.
Yeah.
And
Well, I didn't
I
have
don't
any
think your
demand. It was just you. So I was like, if you want me to teach you what I'm doing, it's going to be expensive, man.
I don't think your rates changed, but you charged me max, man.
I did max charge you probably. I probably did
Yeah.
max. But honestly, I was super honored when you messaged me. And I was like very nervous to talk to you about what I was doing because I already knew, even though I wasn't playing tournaments, I still knew who you were. Like you had a reputation at that point already. That was like, this dude's like goated already. And I was like, why does he want to talk to me? And I was like, in my head, I'm like, well, he can definitely, if he wants to talk to me, he can definitely afford it because he's won all this money. He's like some super champ, dude. So if you want me to talk to you about what I'm doing, I'm gonna rip you off, basically. And I was like, I
Well,
also knew what I was doing was super exploitable, right? It was
well,
very
yeah, and
like,
I'm also in all your games, and like you're
yeah,
gonna turn someone that's kind of break even-ish in your games to a winner. You're gonna make your games tougher. It makes
yeah,
sense that you would charge me. Um,
yeah. I knew exactly like I knew that what I was doing was like very vulnerable to like the people I was doing it to figuring it out, right? Because at the time there were two there was like one basically like dominant idea at the time that's basically dead now, right? And the dominant idea at the time was like this concept of reverse implied odds, right? Which you don't really hear reverse implied odds utilized very often in like high level poker conversations, I don't think. And it was used at the time to justify like folding 70% of your big blinds versus like a steal. Or it's like if you call with this hand, like you're gonna have revert. If you call this hand in the big blind, you're getting these reverse implied odds. You're gonna make this crappy hand later, and so you should fold, right? And so that was one. And then the second one that was really dominant at the time was in sit and goes in particular. It was like this really excessive, almost ICM focus with like the only thing that matters was ICM. So you should just fold all the time and wait until you can play push fold with like, a 5 big blind stack. And but you couldn't late reg the format. So you had to reg the beginning, right? It sounds like they should have just late reg, but they couldn't because the sit and go started. There was no late reg at the time. So they would be playing like a late reg sit out strategy, but they would start at the beginning.
And
so
like accumulating, raising.
Yeah. So my strategy was just like, bro, we're just gonna raise every single. I'm playing like 100% of buttons because these two players, button and small blind, their full percentage is like way higher than 45%, and I'm risking 2 over 4.5 when I min raise the button. So like that was pretty much it. I had like this little basic math trick, and I was like, these guys, small blind and big blind, are folding more than that. So I'm just raising 7-2 offsuit on the button and like spamming raise. And then when they jam on me, I told you, I'm like, yeah, I folded king queen or something, and I was like, I'm just gonna muck king queen here. And you're like, how do you raise fold king queen with 11 big blinds? I'm like, they have aces, bro. They just have aces, bro. Like I remember that, and they were just all so tight, man. They were all so tight. So you pair those two ideas together, right? Like the tournament life idea with the reverse implied odds idea, and you got everyone playing like a nit in sit and goes. And so I was just like. I was winning for like tournament ROIs. I was winning for like 15, 16, 17, 18, 19% in a game that took 40 minutes. And I was just like minting off money, bro.
I remember you had a pretty good note system too, but it was like basically like you were tagging the different levels of nit reg.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. This guy's an 82 button guy. Maybe like you had like. You had a pretty good system with those games. It wasn't just raising first in, but like that was what you got, like that what you were crushing with, though, for sure.
Yeah, that was I mean, like I was like, there's a lot of things I was doing, but the thing that I feel like contributed the most to a super normal win rate over like a large sample was honestly just like guys playing 30 tables at a time with a gamepad, who couldn't play post flop, like they couldn't, and they thought that it was fine because of the way that tournaments or sit and goes were structured and their understanding of reverse implied odds, which was, like I said, at the time was a really big idea. Like now people people are defending their big blind with like 7-5 offsuit, 7-4 offsuit, right? 6-4 offsuit, 5-3 offsuit. That wasn't as popular in that format at all at the time.
Mm-hmm. You probably could have gotten away. I mean, like you probably could have won some money if you were just defending correctly back then. I remember doing stuff like folding Jack 10 suited in the big blind to like a single raise one time.
The reverse implied odds was like a real like corruption of our thinking at the time, like in terms of like people who thought they knew what they were doing.
Well, what I think about that, especially when it comes to shallow stack game, is it's like, okay, let's say I have a Jack 10 and you have King Jack. Oh no, I can be dominated here. But the actual shot of a Jack flopping is the same likelihood of as flopping a set. So it's pretty unlikely in the first place that that's going to happen, that situation.
Yep.
So yeah, I don't think, especially when it comes to shallow stacks poker, that we're worried too much about domination and kickers and things like that. Like 20 big blinds or less, you got top pair, let's go.
Yeah, I mean, as well as like heads up pots, right? I think that the reverse, like I guess a piece of that idea still kind of lingers when you're talking about like the way that you shape squeezing ranges versus calling ranges, right? Like, a lot of the squeezing ranges are like heavily, in some situations, will like heavily favor like dominated Broadway hands and like a heads up pot. So you'll see a lot of squeezing, for example, in multi-way pots with like Jack 10 suited, and you could make the argument that like that hand has some sort of like it, like that because it's so heavily dominated, which would sound like reverse implied odds, that like you are squeezing it. But on the flip side, when you look at that hand, if you don't squeeze it, you better call because calling still beats folding. So right, whereas like
I remember 3-betting somebody with like somebody's early position raise with like Queen 9 suited or King 9 suited or something, which is pretty normal. And they like messaged me and were like I think I won the hand, so they were probably salty. But they were like, what are you thinking 3-betting me with that kind of hand? Like, think about the kind of hands I call you with, like you're so dominated. And it's like, Not really. I mean, you 3-bet king 9 suited, you fold king jack. You know,
Yeah, sure.
actually, it's kind of efficient.
Yeah.
But at the time, I was like, oh yeah, okay, I'm not going to 3-bet that anymore, I guess, because back then we were kind of creating our own ranges, you know,
Yeah, we were
like
making a lot of it was like we were making up. I had a notebook where I would like write everything down and try to like figure stuff out on paper. And
I,
I was too stupid to do it on Excel, which is where Doug Polk was doing it. Doug Polk was doing everything on Excel, and I like when I saw that. That's like I was like, oh man, I should start doing this on Excel, and like that helped. But like these, like it was all by hand, right? Like I remember like when solvers first came out. I remember I don't think Doug was like a huge fan when like Pio first came out, and I was like, I'm pretty sure he was like pretty public about this sucks, and I was like very firmly on the other side of that conversation with my own study, but like. Yeah, like it's just like there were all these stages that we've both been a part of, right? But those early days were like just a wild west of pretty much doing everything on paper, like which people can't really relate
my
to now.
ranges
They
were
just
in
skip that.
Flopzilla. I had all my ranges. I have them still probably on my old computer, but
Hmm.
they were like essentially like educated guesswork. Um,
Sure.
they weren't. They were. I mean, not super far from my ranges that I put out were. Or
How about your small
that
blind
got the.
flatting range? How about your small blind flatting range?
Oh man, it didn't look anything like.
Yeah, that one was off for everybody, right? That one was off for
Yeah,
everybody. Yeah,
yeah. I mean, like I still have a hard time with it sometimes. I mean, like putting in like a, queen 7 suited and stuff, and
sure.
versus late position.
Hmm.
Um,
You can get
also,
wider than that against LP. I mean, you can get down to like queen 5 suited. You can get down to
yeah,
king 2 suited. Yeah, you can make some ugly calls. Small
you
blind versus
can.
button or something like that. Yeah.
If it's a
I
mid
was
range, for
nowhere close
sure.
to that, just to be clear. I was nowhere close to that.
I still kind of struggle with it. Although that's actually a hot spot for me recently, though, is small blind versus late position. I have
Mhm.
been check raising the shit out of people who see bet too much there, because like it's a spot where there's a ton of boards where small blind is supposed to lead, but what I do is I take the leads out,
Okay, so
and
then
in a
they
lot
should
of these,
just check. They should check a lot. They need to
yeah,
check a
like
lot, bro. If you do that.
yeah, and then like when I look it up, I take the leads out. And most of the time it has them betting like only like 20-30% of the
Yeah,
time,
yeah,
and I'm
sure.
like, how about I just increase their bet by about 15%, and then all of a sudden check raise just goes through the roof,
Yeah,
right?
you can just
So
wreck them.
so that's actually like my recent hotspot that's been working pretty well, which is looking for those boards where we're leading in particular,
Hmm.
and check raising the crap out of those spots. The other one is like people think that you get to just bet every time on like king queen X and stuff, and bet small, and it's actually
Yeah, like a bet bigger
generally gonna,
checkboard.
yeah, for the most part. So whenever I see a small bet on those kinds of boards now, I'm like,
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
You're probably betting way too often, way too weak. Sure.
yeah, because if you don't even know like
Yeah,
the
what the
right
size
size,
is.
yeah,
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
probably just be betting with your
Yep.
your whole
Yeah, with
range.
most of your
You've got
range.
way too much air.
Yeah,
Um, yeah.
yeah.
Well,
Jake, you got anything?
no, I was gonna say we could probably wrap it there. It's gone
Yeah,
on
we've been
long
going
enough.
for a while now,
Yeah,
right? It's been
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
an hour and a
I
half.
liked the strategy talk. I just wanted to let it roll. So, oh, this
Oh
was
yeah.
fun.
I was actually kind of like, damn, I just let a little secret out there. But yeah, this was fun. I always like chatting with Jordan. We've
yeah,
been
I
yeah,
we've been
appreciate you, man.
yeah.
and
Appreciate.
and, and
Go
you,
ahead.
Brick. Yeah.
Thank
Um
you, man. Yeah, no, it was a good
yeah,
conversation, man. We appreciate you jumping on, taking some time out of your day to come on.
no
Appreciate it.
doubt. No doubt. Thank you, man.
All right,
Yeah, thank you, man. Appreciate you guys. Talk soon.
all right. Have a
See
good
ya.
one. Bye bye.